You've probably spent a lot of your life feeling like you exist on a slightly different frequency than everyone around you. Like the world is tuned to one channel and you're picking up something else entirely, something deeper, something most people don't seem to notice, or maybe don't want to. And that feeling, that quiet, persistent sense of not quite fitting, it hasn't always been easy to carry. But here's what I want you to consider. What if it was never a flaw? What if it was a sign? Sign 1. Small talk feels like a task, not a conversation. Not because you're antisocial, not because you think you're better than anyone, but because your mind doesn't stay on the surface. It keeps pulling downward, into meaning, into the why behind the what. A stranger mentions the weather, and you're already 3 layers deep, thinking about how humans use weather to fill silence because real vulnerability is terrifying. Psychologists call this need for depth, need for cognition. A well-documented trait where certain people are intrinsically motivated to think deeply, even when it isn't necessary. Even when the situation doesn't call for it. Even when it makes you look distant. It's not a social defect. It's the way your mind is wired to search for substance. Sign 2. You feel other people's emotions before they say a word. You walk into a room and you already know something is off. You can't explain it. The energy, the micro-expressions, the way someone laughs a half second too late, you absorb it all, sometimes without even meaning to. This isn't magic. It's a hyperactive mirror neuron system, the same neurological mechanism that helps humans empathize. In people with deep personalities, it tends to run louder, more sensitive, more attuned. And yes, it's exhausting sometimes, feeling what other people feel even when they haven't handed it to you. But it also means you see people, truly see them. In a world where most people are only half listening, that is rare. Sign 3. You need solitude the way other people need air. Not distance, not isolation. Solitude. There's a difference. Isolation is running from the world. Solitude is returning to yourself. And for you, those quiet hours alone, reading, thinking, walking, staring out a window, they aren't empty. They're where you do your most important work, the inner kind. Carl Jung believed that deeply complex people require regular withdrawal from the social world to process, integrate, and grow. He called it individuation, the lifelong process of becoming fully yourself, and it requires silence. So no, you're not antisocial, you're integrating. Sign 4. You don't just observe the world, you question it. Rules feel arbitrary until you understand their reason. Authority feels hollow unless it earns your respect. Traditions feel empty unless they carry genuine meaning. You've always needed to know why. Why this? Why not that? Why are we doing this at all? People have probably called you difficult for this. Overthinking. Too much. But the most meaningful shifts in human history, in science, in philosophy, in social justice, began with someone asking exactly the question that everyone else had silently agreed to stop asking. Your discomfort with the unexamined is not a problem. It is the beginning of something. Sign 5. You have an intense inner world that most people never see. Outside, you might be calm, measured, even quiet, but inside, it's a different landscape entirely. There are conversations you've replayed 100 times, ideas that lit you up at 2 a.m., grief that lives in places you can't always name, a whole universe that exists behind your eyes that almost no one gets invited into. Not because you're hiding, but because you've learned, often through disappointment, that not everyone knows how to hold what you carry. Sign 6. You are deeply uncomfortable with inauthenticity, fake enthusiasm, performed kindness, conversations built on impressions instead of truth. It makes your skin crawl. You can feel it immediately. The performance, the mask, the gap between what someone says and what they mean. And you've probably struggled to pretend you don't notice, to play along, to smile through dynamics that feel hollow. This isn't cynicism, it's sensitivity to truth. And it means that when you do connect, when someone is real with you, genuinely real, it hits differently. It means everything. Sign 7. You feel things slowly, but deeply. Joy doesn't just flicker for you, it settles. Grief doesn't just pass, it moves through you like weather. You don't process emotions in real time, you process them in waves, sometimes days or weeks later, when the world has gone quiet enough for you to feel what was actually there. This is sometimes called emotional depth processing, a pattern seen in highly sensitive people where emotional experiences are metabolized slowly and thoroughly, rather than quickly and superficially. It makes you slower to react, and far less likely to forget. Sign 8. You are drawn to meaning over success. You've probably stood at crossroads where the right choice, the logical, safe, socially approved one, just felt wrong in a way you couldn't fully articulate. Because for you, a life that looks good from the outside but feels hollow on the inside is not a success. It's a slow loss. You want your days to mean something, your work to matter, your relationships to be real. That is not naivety. That is a very sophisticated understanding of what makes a human life worth living. Sign 9. You outgrow people without warning, and it unsettles you. One day a friendship feels easy and full, and then something shifts. You've moved somewhere new inside yourself, and the old dynamic no longer fits, not because anyone did anything wrong, but because you are always changing, always in some form of becoming. This is lonely sometimes, you know it is, but it also means you are never static, never truly stuck, you move. And the connections that survive that movement, the ones that grow with you, those are the ones that last. Sign 10. You feel most like yourself in the in-between moments. Not at the peak of celebration, not in the noise, but in the quiet drive home afterward, in the hour before sleep, in the pause between one chapter and the next. That is where you live most fully. In the threshold, in the reflection, in the space where most people feel uncomfortable and you feel strangely at home. Here's what I want to leave you with. A deep personality is not a burden you carry. It's a lens you were given. One that lets you see things others walk past, feel things others skim over, ask questions others grown too comfortable to raise. You may have spent years wondering what was wrong with you, why you couldn't just be lighter, easier, less. But the world has never needed you to be less. It has always needed exactly this. Someone willing to go deeper, feel more, and refuse to stop asking what things really mean. That's not a flaw dressed up in better language. That is who you are, and it always has been.